Alright, so we're going to have a quick review of the QOA Margarita. I know you guys can read it, but this is a 2 ESC, 1 BA, 1 dynamic driver set. It retails for around $550, and yeah, let's get into this. Shake this open here. Pull this apart. There we go. Alright, so it comes with like 2 cards, one with like their social media information, some like invites to like stuff like WeChat, stuff like that. Frequency response graph, all their stats and all that stuff like that. Instructions and stuff like that. Alright, and so let's take this out, the case, take this out here, get the IMs out real quick. Yep. Take the terminations out because this does have a modular cable system we'll talk about in a second. Alright, get tips out from this little case here. See, I did use all these tips, and I used the extra small spin fits I use with like everything. And I have to say that I probably like these tips more, and they sound the same as the extra smalls spin fits. So this testing and like this whole review is pretty much going to be based on how it sounded like for me with these extra small spin fits. All right, let's take this out of here. All right, so it does come with a pretty generic, standard puck style case with QOA branding on it. I don't know if I mentioned this already, but QOA is actually a child brand or sub-brand or something like that of Kinera. It's supposed to be for like their cheaper models, but I mean, the Kinera sells a $500 set as well. So I don't really know why this is under their QOA brand, but I don't know. It's like their QOA flagship, I believe. Okay, so let's take the cable out. Now this cable, I really like this cable. Probably one of the better set of cables I've seen with an IM before. I mean, it's very smooth, really smooth, like really smooth. And it does have a pretty great modular system. I mean, it's pretty standard how it works, It's nothing like a Q-lock or something from what's it called, Dunu. But I mean, it's a nice functional connector. Just quickly come off. Oh, sorry for the cut. I dropped one of these. I had to find it. So yeah, it pretty much goes on really quick, really easily, and comes off. But it doesn't like come off when you unplug it from like a player or something like that. So it's a pretty great cable. I really like it. I think this is a very fitting cable for the price, if not better than what you usually see at for this price. So let's put that to the side. We can put these to the side as well. Let's talk about now the QOA Margarita's shell and comfort. So I think this looks amazing. I think it really has a nice sparkle on this like yellow half, and like it looks really cool. I think it looks really nice. It's well built. It's all resin, except I think this part might be made. No, this is also resin. I think everything is resin. And I think it's a very comfortable set as well. I think that you should have no problems wearing these for many hours on end, no issues. I think it's a great, comfortable set with really great build. So that's enough of that. Let's talk about now what you're here for. Sound. Let's do what we usually do. Mids, lows, mids, highs, and all that. So we'll start with the lows, the bass. I think the bass is well done on here. There's not too much, not too little. It's a pretty good balance. It's got good punch. I think it could improve in the texture department for this price range, but it's still decent. I think that there's no problems in the bass, and I don't really have any major complaints at this price range, though I would like some more detail and texture in the bass. Now let's talk about mids and vocals. We're going to talk about more about the bass and stuff like that in comparisons when I compare with the Dunu SA6 Mk2. Sorry, I wanted to mention that real quick. Let's try to get this presentable here. That's good enough. Alright, so let's talk about the mids. Mids, like vocals, instruments done very well here, especially when we talk about the highs. I'll get into that in a second, but yeah, vocals and stuff like that, very great vocals. I think that vocals overall sound excellent on this set. It can have a little bit of thinness compared to some other warmer sets, because this is a more neutral set. I wouldn't call it bright. I think it more towards neutral, but ever so slightly, I guess, bright-ish, because it does have really nice treble extension. And it doesn't roll off the treble anyway. I think that the vocals have a great forward but not too forward presentation. Really great detail in the vocals, but every once in a while I can get a little bit of thinness, and I'd say them in a little bit more in the male vocals than the female vocals. Female vocals are done really excellently on here, but overall vocals are fantastic on this set, both male and female. Let's talk about highs now. The highs are really excellent on this set. I would say they're the best EST highs I've heard in a set in this price point, but there's a set that's going to come up in the next review that actually has that, and we'll talk about that when that comes up. But these do have a great EST implementation, really amazing sounding treble and upper treble from those ESTs. Great detail performance without being fatiguing or sibilant. Every once in a while, if you're very, very, very treble sensitive, you can encounter small issues, but overall, you should really never have issues with the treble on these things, and I think it has great treble extension, very good detail in that department. Now let's talk about imaging and soundstage. I think the stage is really quite nice. I think that it's around average to above average for the price point. It's more stage than you'll get on the Dunu SA6 Mk2, but not quite, ultra expansive craziness like that. But it's got good stage. Like, this is your head, this is where the stage will land, while the SA6 Mk2 will be like here. I mean, it's not a huge difference, but it does have more stage. Every bit of amount is important. I hope you can't hear the car outside. Every small amount of stage, and when it comes to IEMs, to me, is a pretty big deal, because IEMs just have a small stage already to begin with. You just increase it by a little bit, it's quite a big difference in my opinion. Anyway, imaging wise, great imaging actually. I think that this is very good pinpoint placement. I think that this would be great for gaming and movies and stuff like that. I think that this has great imaging performance. Probably on par with the SA6 Mk2, maybe a little bit better imaging. I'd say a little bit better imaging than the SA6 Mk2. Okay, now let's get into full-on comparisons between this and the SA6 Mk2, like base, mid, highs. Let's go. Base comparison on these is interesting. So I think that, this has a base switch, right? It has the lower switch and higher switch. If you see my review on that, I get into more detail. But pretty much, with the switch down and this with the bass boost off, I'd say this has slightly more bass than the Dunu SA6 Mk2. But with the switch on the Dunu SA6 Mk2, I'm just gonna say the SA6. It's too long. With the bass switch on the Mk2, I'll say Mk2. This has a little bit less bass than that. So I'd say it's in the middle, but leaning more towards this with the switch on. It does have a slight bass boost over neutral on the Margarita. I'd say that the initial impact, initial slam of the bass on the Margarita is better. If you listen to my review on the SA6 Mk2, I say that that's kind of the weak point of the bass on this, is the initial slam, but the texture is better on the Mk2. The Mk2 has a great texture to the bass that I have not seen rivaled in this price point. And so this thing is not something to beat the texture on the bass on the Mk2. I think that's pretty much where the bass lands in between the both. I think they both do bass well, but I think that if you're a real bass lover and you want to know which one's better for bass, I think overall the Mk2 is going to perform better in bass. Now, for the mids is where these can go back and forth here, in my opinion. Now, I think that lower female vocals and male vocals do better on the SA6 Mk2. I think that female vocals, like, overall are kind of equal, but if you do like the higher pitch female vocals, like the upper female vocals, I think the Margarita does better. I think the EST, like, not the EST driver necessarily, but the treble, the way the treble is done on these, the way, like, in the upper mid-range on these is done better than it's done on the Dunu. And I also think that the instruments might be a little bit better on these, but it depends on if you want a warm signature, which is the Mk2, and or not warm signature. Now, this is more, I think, analytical than the Mk2 is, and I think that because of that, these have a better detail performance. I think that it's a little bit more clear sounding. But at the same time, I prefer the signature of the Mk2 overall. I think the Mk2 brings forward the vocals a little bit more than the Margarita does. I think that the Margarita, it still doesn't have push-back vocals anyway, but I think that the vocals are closer on the Mk2 than they are on the Margarita. As I said before, the Margarita does have a slightly bigger stage than the Mk2 does. The treble overall, though, if we talk about treble performance, treble extension, is better on the Margarita. I think you could probably tell that's where I was going to go with this. The treble on the Margarita is just, it's clearer, it's got better extension, but I will say for people who like a rolled off treble, of course, the Mk2 is going to be better. And so I actually prefer the Mk2 over the Margarita because I prefer a rolled off treble. I prefer closer vocals. So to me, and I also like the bass more on this. Now, some female vocalists do really sound better on the Margarita, and I think that they can really it can really win out on some tracks, the Margarita over the Mark II. I think overall, my recommendation would be the Mark II, though the Mark II is $30 more, but I think that at this price point, that's not too much of a consideration when you're in this price point here. So I think overall, the Margarita is a slept-on set. I really think it's a great set. Also, I forgot to mention this is a slightly recessed tube pin. Just wanted to say, but yeah, I think overall this is a great set for the price. You get a great cable that honestly rivals the quality of the cable on the Dunu. I think that the cable is better, but the termination system is better on the Dunu. You're getting great accessories. You know, you're getting better comfort on the Margarita over the Dunu. Almost around the same level of vocal performance, and overall you're getting more soundstage and better treble. So it really depends on what you want more. Do you want a better treble performance and like upper female vocal performance, and you know that a little bit bump in soundstage, etc., or do you want, you know, a better bass performance, a warmer sounding set? It's pretty much up to you. You know, it's really up to preference. I think this is a really slept on set. That's why I keep repeating that. It's just like, I can't believe I haven't heard more about this set. I really like it. Anyway, so yeah, I can recommend this set wholeheartedly. Anyway, that's about it. See ya.